Only rarely does one ever read or hear about how sports in the current era inextricably intertwines with the law, the politics, the sociology, the education, and the medical care of society. It is a common practice now for sports franchise owners to rip off great cities in financial distress, either by franchise removal or threat of franchise removal. I have seen emphasis upon sports corrupt our higher education process and, to at least some degree, our secondary educational system. I have observed the distinguishing intent to which television will go in order to get a rating. I have covered the development of labor unions in sports, lockouts in sports, special purpose legislation caused by the Congress for Sports, and I have seen the birth of a curious new stratum in society, which Robert Lipsyte brilliantly entitled The Jockocracy. The world of sports today is endlessly complex, an ever spinning spiral of deceit, immorality, absence of ethics, and defiance of the public interest. Yet, somewhere within all that, there continues to lurk the valid notion that there is good in sports, and that the games themselves provide a necessary respite from the ills and frustrations of life itself. Well, hello there, Bitcoin. I didn't see you guys come in. Welcome to Bitcoin Talk Show. I was just reading a little bit of Howard Cosell there from his book, I Never Played the Game. I just got the audiobook of Howard's book. I had heard he was fired from Monday Night Football years ago because of some comments he made. And it turns out certainly he made those comments, but that might not have been the end of his career. The end of his career seems like it was this book, I Never Played the Game, where Cosell throws pretty much everyone he ever worked with, every sport he's ever covered, every company he's ever been with under the bus. It's a good book so far. It's only an hour and a half, unfortunately. It's an abridged version. They never put that in the title, abridged. They tend to put unabridged in the title, but never abridged. But Howard had a tough time. He was a broadcaster. He was an old school broadcaster. He was not a jock. He was a fan of football. He was a fan of boxing. He was interested in them. He studied them like a scientist, right? Like a person trying to understand. And he had trouble when they started filling up the box with jocks. At first, he said it went well, and he speaks kindly of many fine moments with athletes like the Juice. It's so funny to hear someone refer to OJ without the trouble. And then later in the show, he recommended someone that could replace him on the show. How about Bill Cosby? He's got a great sitcom over there on NBC, but he seems to be unavailable. So good stuff from Howard. And just a reminder that other people had problems in this business, and it's never too easy to be an announcer or a broadcaster. There's a lot of egos and jealousy. Frank Gifford never liked me. Don Meredith, I just can't understand him. So it's good to read Howard and to get some of the voice back. And if you haven't heard of Howard Cosell, maybe you're not familiar with this. It's a pretty decent movie called something like Monday Night Football, Monday Night Lights, something like that. But it's a good movie. I'd check that out. Of course, the Ali movie by Michael Mann, a great movie. I don't recall that much Howard Cosell in there, but there is a little. It's more of a that one for the boxing, the other one for the football. Get a little bit of Howard Cosell in your life. Very interesting character. He made football more interesting. I don't know, interesting guy. Enjoying his book. But let's get started today on Bitcoin Talk Show. Today is Friday, September 7th, 2018. My name is Thomas Hunt, and here's what's happening today in Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin is down 1.98% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 6,379, a high of 6,537, and a low of 6,342. That's $1 for 15,684 Satoshis, as we're once again on the wrong side of the 15,000 Satoshi barrier. Let's check out the top 10 altcoins sorted by volume, weighted against the price of Bitcoin. Ethereum down 4%, Bitcoin Cash down 2.5%, EOS also down 2.5%, Ethereum Classic down 1%, Litecoin down half a point, Ripple down 2.5%, Dash up 1.5%, Qtum up 2.25%, and Tron down about 3.5% to round out the top 10. Zcash, Neo, and Ontology, honorable mention. Checking out the top 5 distributed applications sorted by users in the last 24 hours. IDEX still in the lead with around 2,000, Fork Delta with about 1,000, and Ethereum, CryptoKitties, and Bancor all with less than 500 users in the last 24 hours. Checking out the most active blockchains in the last 24 hours. EOS, BitShares, and Steem. It's back to normal with Ethereum and Bitcoin. Bitch falling back to 6th position. The stress test must be over. There's still 81,000 unconfirmed transactions on the Ethereum blockchain, while there's a mere 22,000 on Bitcoin, which will likely clear. Checking out the mainstream media, Bitcoin is not dead. That's the opposite of what they usually write. Of course, this guy did used to write for CoinDesk, so he might have accidentally become a Bitcoiner. He says Bitcoin is dying and it's time to get a new job. Oh, that's sad. The warnings are stark. Bitcoin's price has lost 70% since its 20,000 peak of last year. The Securities and Exchange Commission has rejected every Bitcoin ETF so far, and Goldman Sachs has delayed its so-called trading desk. Of course, when we actually look at the stories, where is it? It was on Twitter. It was at TechCrunch. Well, I can't find it right now, but Goldman Sachs has already said they're not delaying anything. Thanks so much for letting us buy cheap Bitcoin. Once again, if you sold, too bad. However, the price has not recovered yet, so it leads one to believe that perhaps the rumors of Goldman Sachs shutting down their plans for the trading desk was not the reason that the price of Bitcoin fell, despite the headlines in the mainstream media that told you simple, 1-to-1, this news event equals this price drop, because you're not very advanced and they fooled you. So you got to look at more things. I still think that movement of a large amount of Bitcoins from a wallet formerly held by the Mt. Gox whale going to an exchange, likely opening a short, then selling a whole bunch of Bitcoins, filling up his short, and selling that too. So larger whales always in play. The guy had 100,000 coins. Do you think what's more important, a news story about Goldman Sachs, a chart that predicts the price yesterday, or a guy selling 100,000 coins? Well, golly gee, it looks like the markets of Bitcoin are so small that they're an emerging market where technical analysis doesn't work, because every once in a while, when you least expect it, a large whale will come in and sell, or a large whale will come in and buy. Until the markets of Bitcoin are large enough for this to not move the needle in such a violent fashion, dropping the price of Bitcoin from around $7,500 to $6,500 or $6,400 at the current time. You've got to keep an eye on more than the charts and more than the news if you want to know about Bitcoin. Then again, you could always just hodl long term. The price of Bitcoin when I started this show was around $100. Seems like a good deal. Bitcoin price intraday analysis. BTC USD on sideways trend. There we go. It's not going up. It's not going down. It's going sideways. And there it is. Bitcoin is already so-called in a giant descending triangle, in contrast to reports that Goldman Sachs delay their trading desk, push the price down the cliff. A story the CEO later confirmed was fake. Not that it concerns our analysis, but it certainly involves us to push an ancient and famous cartoon from Wall Street. I've got a great idea that should really excel. Really excel? Excel? Sell, 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 sell. This is madness. I can't take it anymore. Goodbye. Goodbye? Bye? 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 So, like the article says, the question is who will be the one to scream a big buy and push Bitcoin back towards the overall bullish path? We don't have an answer, so let's just focus on what matters most, trying to predict the future by looking at the past. As you all know, Hank Aaron, still the home run leader. I expect him to be hitting more home runs soon. Is a new trend commencing in Bitcoin, with the Iranian government now regarding cryptocurrency mining as a real industry, as so to mitigate the effects of economic sanctions imposed by the United States. The overall cryptocurrency market is bleeding due to Bitcoin whales emptying their coffers. Hello, that's what I just said. Bitcoin may fall in the short term until the 168.1% support level at 5,388, according to some guy on seekingalpha.com. Bitcoin, the swindle of the century, from Entrepreneur Magazine. The tech world has been taken for a ride, but that doesn't mean there's nothing to gain from the crypto craze. Get ready, Fudstronauts, because we're going to get right into it here. You know what he's going to say. He's going to say digital ledger technology. The blockchain is so amazing. Bitcoin is BS. Great stuff. Here we are, the real benefit, the technology underpinning it all, free of hype and deceptions, is surprisingly trustworthy. Why can't this guy understand the currency too? Why can't he understand, in comparison to the Federal Reserve notes, which are constantly being printed electronically and otherwise, Bitcoin is a wholly different animal, and that the underlying technology of Bitcoin, the blockchain, is best used serving a decentralized currency. That's why Satoshi invented it. If Satoshi invented a better database, why would he use it for a decentralized currency? You guys believe that the guy is smart enough to make this incredible technology that you're all going gaga over, but he's dumb enough to use it for the wrong thing? Really? Really? So what you're saying is you're smarter than Satoshi. When you say that blockchain is better than Bitcoin, you say Satoshi has made a mistake. Good luck with that one. Yeah, I'm going to believe that when I see it. The rest of the mainstream media this morning: price, the price, the price, and the price. Is now a good time to buy Bitcoin? 80% of Americans are aware of Bitcoin. That's good stuff. Why Bitcoin dropped 10%? Goldman CFO: the story about us dropping Bitcoin trading was fake news. Meanwhile, I almost forgot one of the biggest stories of the day because we're just getting overwhelmed with news here. Bitcoin could be boosted by a new exciting potential ETF. You guessed it. Wait for it. Which company in the Bitcoin space is trying to do everything? It's trying to be everything to everyone. That's right. Coinbase. Coinbase is starting a brand new ETF because they just want to use everyone's business model. They're like a pets.com that has an Amazon, that has their own Komodo, it has their own delivery service. We could get you a webvan delivery. We are in every single part of this industry except sticking with Bitcoin. We are just desperate for more fees. We just need more fees. And more mainstream media: the price, the price, the price. We've got analysis from Ethereum World News. Sounds really respectable. Good job, Google News, sorting that one out. Bitcoin price, more bears waiting to join in. And finally, here it is: the mystery $1 billion Bitcoin whale is active. What it could mean to prices. There we go. The movement of a large amount of Bitcoin affects the price more than chart reading analysis. It's amazing. There's nowhere to hide in crypto as the digital asset tighten in slump. Bitcoin drops suddenly and sharply. Reaches, and then finally, what I love is just 3 days ago, Forbes, you're so out of it now. Bitcoin reaches 1 month high as crypto markets rally. Interesting to see. Checking out the World Crypto Network. Looks like Max is presenting more live shows from the Hayek Summer Workshop. Check it out at the Leipzig University. He's learning about Hayek and economics. Check it out here on the World Crypto Network. Looks like he's going to quite a lot of classes. We also had Bitcoin Talk Show yesterday. And let's check out everyone's favorite part of the show, yesterday's comments. Yesterday's comments. B.L. Dewyan writes in with a great story about giving people Bitcoin so they can see how it works. He even timestamps when we were talking about the importance of giving out Bitcoin. I was talking to a caller who gives out Bitcoin at his work. He even gives people altcoins. He's far more generous. I say $1 is a great giveaway. This guy says all of this, give him $1 in this, give him $1 in that. He gives them tons of stuff. So it's a really nice giveaway. But here's B.L. Dewyan's story. He says, last year, when Bitcoin was worth around 5,000, I helped a Bangladeshi boy, 8 years old, to install Electrum on his dad's phone, remotely, that is. He wrote the 12 words in a little notebook, and then he hid it where the family hides the few grams of gold they have to pay for his schooling every January when they need money to enroll him in the new school year. I sent him some Bitcoin, and once he saw it was more than zero, he uninstalled the Electrum wallet. Then he installed HODL on his dad's Android to check how much his Bitcoin was worth. Ever since he checks daily the value of Bitcoin and informs me of what it is, he is so happy, and so far the value of his Bitcoin is more than when he got it originally. He understands very well the value of those 12 words he treasures. He memorized the 12 words too, so he learned a little bit more English in the process. Thanks so much, B.L. Dewyan, for the great story and great work spreading the word of Bitcoin. Pretty neat to see that someone in Bangladesh could hide a piece of paper with their 12 words and save a little bit of money that way. I wonder how much it will be worth someday. Rolando Tech says they managed to tame Bitcoin. Yes, it does seem like Wall Street and the other markets are now becoming involved in Bitcoin, and it's hard to tell who's driving. Roy Westbarker writes, always remember this maxim. The market can out-stupid even the stupidest. The smart, they stand no chance against such stupidity, but they'll try to rationalize it anyway. In markets we trust. Trust we must. Jim D writes in that he likes my fantastic Roger Ver impression. I was reading Roger's tweet and I tried to give it a little bit of what Roger sounds like for fun. He timestamped it as well, so you can check it out. Remember, it's always great to timestamp in a comment on YouTube. You can help other people find interesting things in longer shows. And finally, Roy Westbarker writes, Bitcoin will be rehypothecated. That means that they'll sell more Bitcoin than they have. There'll be that gold ticket phenomenon where you think you own a Bitcoin, but because you hold it in a centralized exchange, you actually hold a ticket that represents a Bitcoin. They may or may not have enough Bitcoins to equal all the tickets. As he says here, that way, once they rehypothecate it, all 35 million millionaires can see a Bitcoin on their brokerage statements, even though they don't really have them. And it's funny if you think about it at that point, the actual price of what a Bitcoin will be, it's unlikely that anyone will sell an entire Bitcoin all at once. So it won't matter very much if you let the millionaires all think that they have a Bitcoin, as long as they don't all try to sell at the same time. Thanks so much for your comments, and thanks for giving a thumbs up and a share so that more people will watch the show. We did Bitcoin Talk Show yesterday. I read a great long article in Rolling Stone about Stephen Colbert and how it was difficult for him to move from his character on the Colbert Report into his new show, the Late Show. I think that's it. It's so hard. Late nights on NBC, late shows on CBS. Sorry. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and how at first he was trying to be silly and funny, and then something happened with the election and they were live on the air. And Stephen said he could see all of the horrible things that have happened to us, and that's why he felt so bad. He could see all of this happening before it did. Since then, he's become a very prominent Trump critic and satirist, even so far as I would say just expressing honest frustration with the current situation, the new levels of madness which we break every day, and to see him honestly reacting to it on the air is pretty impressive. They had a survey saying that roughly 1,200 Americans found that 48% of millennials are interested in using cryptocurrencies as a primary form of payment. Once again, Bitcoin is money for the future, and the future is the youth. Uh, People who are past a certain age aren't too into computers, aren't too into new technology, aren't looking to change, whereas young people do everything on their phone, love new technology, and have no problem installing a new app so they can pay in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's first embedded message speaks of the failure of financial systems. Andreas Antonopoulos continues to warn against the Bitcoin ETF and say that Bitcoin should stay true to its roots of challenging the banks rather than getting in bed with them to later kick them out of bed and take the bed for itself. A shocking number of people got tattoos of the Domino's logo in hopes of scoring free pizza for life. A contest at Russia's Domino's Pizza, not in the United States, gave away 100 prizes where you could get 100 pizzas per year for the rest of your life for free if you tattoo Domino's Pizza's logo somewhere on your body in a prominent way and release it on social media. Within days of the contest, more than 300 people had tattooed themselves with the Domino's logo. The contest was quickly canceled by Domino's Russia, but it is worthwhile to see how many people will put ink on their body in exchange for free, not very good food. Burt Reynolds passed away yesterday at 82. Of course, I was a big fan of Burt Reynolds in the movie Boogie Nights, so I promptly looked that up, only to find that he did not enjoy the movie Boogie Nights at all. He didn't enjoy working with Paul Thomas Anderson. He never watched the movie. I don't know if he liked the subject matter either. I think it's one of his best performances. It's a fantastic movie featuring many great shots, homages to other shots, and also unique creations of Paul Thomas Anderson. Of course, I love the pool scene, stolen from a Cuban foreign film, which I have seen as well. I forget the name right now, but great scene. The pool, the camera goes through the whole party. A lot of tracking shots in this movie, like Scorsese's Goodfellas. His shot, PT shot, actually goes in the water. So he takes it one step further than the Cuban film. It was pretty impressive. The Cuban film's also really good. You should see that. One of the best things about Boogie Nights is the commentary track. So check that out. It's practically like a film school in itself. P.T. Anderson really goes into it and teaches you. Unfortunately, Burt Reynolds didn't like filming this movie and says that every time PT set up a shot, it was like the first time that shot was being done. And Burt would reference 3 or 4 other movies that had the same shot. I think it was something about P.T. Anderson almost being a first-time director. He did do Hard 8 or Sydney a few years earlier, and they took it away from him. So he was very concerned that they were going to take the movie Boogie Nights away from him, or that people were going to question his decisions. Of course, he later went on to make the film There Will Be Blood, a great movie, Oscar-nominated Best Picture. He made The Master, Oscar-nominated Best Picture. Incoherent Vice, something like that. A great film, great book. He made that as well. Just a fantastic filmmaker. I even like Magnolia, but I think it's too long. Crypto Daddy's referencing in the chat, Joe Rogan and Elon Musk apparently smoked pot together on Joe Rogan's podcast the other day. I haven't watched it yet. Sounds hilarious. Certainly the entire world is reacting and perhaps even overreacting. Remember, Inherent Vice. That was it. Thank you, Edmund, in the chat. I'd like to read the book of that. I forget who it's by, but he writes really long books, similar to David Foster Wallace. And I would like to check it out. I've never read any of that author's books. They're supposed to be pretty challenging. Yeah, There Will Be Blood is great. I drink your milkshake. And Yeah, it's an interesting stuff about Elon. They say Elon seemed high and drunk the entire conversation. Well, that's pretty rough. The Tesla HR quit. Oh no. That's pretty funny. Yeah, they're right. Francisco says just one puff and CNN goes wild. Remember that, technically, we are in the year 2018 and recreational marijuana is legal in Colorado, Nevada, and California, maybe even another couple states. But still, it's so funny that there'd be such an overreaction. I got to check that out. Big fan of Joe Rogan. What I like about his podcast is what I like about Howard Stern. He gets somebody in there for an hour, hour and a half, no breaks, no commercials, no time to talk to your PR representative. And that's probably the people who would have talked Elon out of drinking and talked him out of smoking. And maybe he would have presented himself better, but it wouldn't be such an interesting interview. And we'll just have to see if it's interesting or not. Jesse Powell, CEO of Kraken and a friend of mine from college, says that his company laid off about 10% of client services team in a cost-saving measure. Others were offered optional and voluntary resignation packages. There's no security breach. It's not hundreds of people. No other teams were effective, and they're still aggressively hiring globally for all functions. So shout out to Kraken. Good on Jesse for getting out ahead of this and being public and honest with what's going on with this company. Doesn't seem like anything to worry about. If anything, I've heard that he actually said the software is working so well, we don't need as many technical support people. So it goes. Let's see. The Woodward book, Burt Reynolds. All you really have in the end are your stories. A good message from Burt Reynolds. Good to get out there and live a life, right? I watched a couple of Paul Rudd movies in the last couple of days. I just find Rudd to be so personable. It's great to hang out with him. I watched Role Models. It's pretty good. And I also watched I Love You Man, which I actually kind of love. So check those out if you haven't. Good light comedies. If you like Paul Rudd, which how could you not like Paul Rudd? He doesn't age and he just seems so personable. Fontaine writes, Mad Bitcoins, it's so refreshing hearing your voice of reason and moderation amongst all the Bitcoin, Ayn Rand, isolationists, enthusiasts whose ideologies are detached from reality. This space needs to hear your views. Keep the excellent content coming. Thanks so much, Fontaine, for your kind words. REM is releasing a new album, kind of. Rare live studio recordings from the BBC. REM at the BBC is going to be on vinyl, CD, and even DVD, which means they're probably going to trick me into buying at least 2 copies. Mark Wahlberg said goodbye to his friend Burt Reynolds. Nice to see these tributes going out with the passing of the great actor. Twitter finally axes Alex Jones over a publicity stunt. It says they had allowed Alex back on. Earlier, we'd heard it was a personal decision from CEO Jack Dorsey, who overruled his staff, saying that they should not kick Alex off of their platform. But then he went to Congress during the Twitter hearings. He got in a little bit of a scuffle with Ted Cruz. He touched Cruz on the shoulder and tried to talk to him. Cruz said, "Don't touch me," several times, something like that. Alex was broadcasting it live on Periscope on the Twitter platform. He then, I haven't watched this, but they say he went on to find a journalist and then to harass him to his face for about 10 minutes. This harassment flew in the face of Twitter's no harassment policy, and Alex and InfoWars were permanently banned. Yes, it doesn't seem like it's the largest offense by Alex Jones, but sometimes it's just the straw that breaks the camel's back. So, it was Rubio, not Cruz. Who can tell? They're both terrible. Sad news. Well, it's always sad to hear from Ross, but it's always good too. He says, clemency from the president is my only hope of breathing free air again. Please get this petition to as many people as possible. I need your help. And I've never met Ross, but I met his mother, and she was lovely. And it always seems like the saddest story. He was a Boy Scout. He was a good kid. He sold books on the internet. And then he may or may not have built that drug selling website. It really seems to me, from a step back, especially considering that the FBI agents who investigated him stole from him and are now in jail themselves, that Ross Ulbricht, all he really did was operate a drug market without violence. Large amounts of money were traded for large amounts of cannabis without any violence, embarrassing the United States government. Once the government finally stopped him, they threw him in prison for double life, worse than murderers, worse than killers, worse than massive drug cartels, worse than pretty much anybody you can imagine. He seems like a nice guy. He's teaching people inside. He's reading books. He's trying to deal with the situation, but he could really use your help retweeting and favoriting. I do agree with his analysis that presidential pardon is his only way out now. Their appeal to the Supreme Court was rejected, despite the inclusion of the Carpenter case, which says you're not supposed to be able to use people's internet history and so on against them. So something like that. I don't know the specifics, but um, yeah, it's too bad. But I really do think this is his only chance. Donald Trump is pretty bizarre. It's possible he might. No, I can't say that. But I mean, I think that any other president, it would be very difficult for him to get a pardon. This president, a bit of a wild card. This might be Ross's best chance for a pardon for the next 20 years, unless we experience and continue to experience, as I said, recreational marijuana is legal in California, Nevada, Colorado, a few other states. If this trend continues, maybe people will realize that the drug war was a mistake and jailing someone like Ross is also a mistake and that he could deserve a pardon. Right now with Trump, maybe it would be a great distraction. Maybe that's the way to press it. You have so many other problems. Why don't you pardon this random guy and start a whole conversation on the drug war? It's tough to tell, right? Because Trump himself has, of course, said positive things about marijuana and legalization, whereas Jeff Sessions, his attorney general, has cracked down on marijuana, returning to a time before the Obama administration's lax policies, which allowed the medical legalization to continue, which eventually, as you saw, led to the recreational legalization. Max is live talking about Venezuela at the Hayek Summer Workshop. So check that out. The Oscars have delayed the popular film category at least until next year. It makes no sense. They say that they don't want to do it halfway through the season. They want to do a full year so people will understand that they're going to be nominated for popularity, which makes no sense. Popularity is not equality. It's pretty clear that the best popular film is going to be the one that had the most people see it, right? It's a straight popularity contest. The quality, the problem here is that they're saying the film is not quality. The film is quality because it's popular. Things are getting twisted in there. They're not exactly recognizing great film. People also thought it could be incredibly unfair to Black Panther, which is a solid superhero movie, which might be nominated for Best Picture. Probably pretty much the first superhero movie to be nominated for Best Picture. It's hard to think. I think The Dark Knight, several of those might have been nominated. Of course, everyone thought they wouldn't win, and they didn't. But now that they have 10 Best Picture nominees, you can just throw them out anywhere. The changes to the Oscars keep making it worse. They should just go back to reading the awards aloud and having dinner. Joseph Young writes, if Bitcoin doesn't go up to 7,000 after Goldman Sachs officially denies the Bitcoin trading desk rollback report, there can't be a more definitive proof that the market didn't drop on September 5th because of Goldman Sachs. I agree with that. And there's the quote again. He said, I think one of the wonderful things about us is that we get written about a lot. Zombie squid. I never thought I would hear myself use this term, but I really have to describe that news as fake news. And finally, this morning, Jenna Marbles created an incredible video. I'm trying to blend in with my green screen. Complete shout out to Jenna. Fantastic work. She puts on a bald cap. She puts on a full green face makeup and then geniusly inserts herself into images with the help of her boyfriend, Julian. Great work, Jenna Marbles. Funny video, inspired, creative, all the things. And as you can see, she's in full mask makeup here. She becomes just eyes and a mouth, which make it even better to insert her into things. I'm completely shocked that TV shows are not doing this. I know Conan O'Brien did something similar to this, but I always thought maybe they had a different form to it, but maybe they've always done it this way with the green screen and the face makeup. But wow, look at that. Isn't this great? Just a fun idea. Great work, Jenna Marbles. Great work. You can check that out on Twitter. I've got a link to that on my Twitter feed, or just subscribe to Jenna Marbles. Vagabond's got a great tweet storm. We're going to read quite a lot of it here. Thanks so much to Vagabond for these kind words. You can follow him on Twitter at Vagabond. For anyone who's really hurting right now because losing money in stocks or crypto, I want to share this. I don't know if it'll help, but I hope so. So here goes. Text is so small. I'm 46 years old. I've spent my last cent dozens of times. Seriously, my last penny, last dime, last dollar. It always feels like the end of the world as the money is dwindling down. There's this dread as the ticker counts down on my money. Tick, tick, tick. And then boom, it's gone. No more money. Empty pockets, empty bank account, empty wallet. No friends to call on, no family to help. And at that point, it should be really bad. I mean, it should feel like the end of the effing world, but it doesn't. Nothing ends. No penniless police come to arrest me. I don't get kicked out of businesses. I don't stop showering and smell bad. Not even when I was homeless. Not even when I was down and out in cities where I didn't owe a soul. The thing that happens is weird, but it's not that. Suddenly, the whole world opens up. It becomes lighter and easier. It starts to feel like there are infinite possibilities. There are. And people suddenly start to appear in your life that you either didn't know or forgot about, or that you wouldn't have let in before. And every time, every single effing time, opportunity and money appear, and I leave that liberated and wonderful feeling behind with all the shitty feeling I had as I was heading down, and I head up again. Sometimes I get pretty high. Sometimes I don't make it that high that time at the bottom. The liberation of not having any further to go. It's like rocket fuel. And I wonder what it might be like just to stay down there, to be a bird and just say, F it. I'm not working and struggling and fighting and clawing my way up anymore, just to be an animal on this planet. It must feel pretty good. I know it does. Maybe that's where nirvana or enlightenment or philosophical or religious understanding comes from. I've felt it. I know it's there. Jesus said, give unto Caesar's that which is Caesar's. He flipped the effing money lender tables over. Buddha left it all and went out with nothing, trusting the world. Muhammad fled his hometown with nothing. The stories all have nothing as the means to the ends. My favorite story comes from the Sufis. A thing clinging to a rock in a stream loses its grip, loses its precious rock, and then the current catches it and beats it all to shit as it tries to grab and claw a rock, any rock. It doesn't want to be loose in the stream, and it gets beaten pretty bad. And then finally, it gets beaten so bad that it just lets go. And when it does, the current raises it up and carries it with no more beating. It rises and flows over the water until it comes to the ocean when it realizes that all the other water was trying to get it there. And letting go is what it needed to do all along. Anyway, I like that story. I know that some people are hurting right now. They've borrowed money, lost money. They are scared and hurting and afraid of what might happen, what they may lose. No matter what happens, you have to survive to see what happens next. That is all. Even if you lose everything, you might end up realizing that it was what you needed all along. But you'll never know if you don't stay alive and see what happens next. I hope you win. I hope you discover the thing you need to discover. And if it helps, remember that we're all just animals and this money shit is all bullshit anyway. If there is a God, he doesn't give two shits about money. And if there's not a God, same thing. Peace. Great thing from Vagabond. Thanks for the kind words. I hope anyone out there, if you're not feeling well, if you lost a lot of money in this Bitcoin or this Ethereum thing or whatever, I hope that you'll get help. Contact the suicide helpline, talk to a friend of yours, talk to your family, and just try to get help because it will get better. And like his story here from Vagabond, he's been through this several times. He's lost it all. He's made it back. He's lost it all. You hear lots of stories about this. There's always a second chance out there. It might not lead to the same heights, but it'll be interesting and you'll get to find out what happens next. So stick in there. And thanks to Vagabond for his great tweet storm here. Let's see, we're going to do Bitcoin Talk Show, and we've got the Lego Las Vegas and Mad Bitcoin right here. Pretty cool stuff. But let's get on Bitcoin Talk Show today. Is there anyone out there that wants to call in? We're going to try to keep the show going till at least 10 o'clock. Hopefully we can get a couple of calls today. You can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or at 518-600-1949. I'm going to try work backwards through the chat, see what's going on. People say this market is unregulated. This is the Wild West. That's a good one. Dan Emmons thinks that people will use their fiat stock to get wrecked using leverage. Leverage is dangerous. Audio Video Tweaker says he went through the same thing like in this Twitter storm. He agrees. Jay Lucid says great writing. And for the love of money is the root of all evil. That's complex. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, Thomas. This is Russell I'm in Indiana right now.
All right. How's it going, Russell?
Doing great, doing great. So I'd call in and say hi again and just talk a little bit about where the coin is right now and what my thoughts about it are, how I feel about it. It's truly not just about the price. Although I do kind of resent when people come in there and say, oh, we can't worry just about the price. But you know what? If that's where somebody's at, and that's where they're at in Bitcoin at this point, then the price is very important to them because that's their livelihood or whatever. But the way I look at it, because of the fact that I have a decent, steady job, you know, I'm able to DCA in each week. So I put my $100 in every week. I don't care if it's, you know, 8,000 or 6,000 or 4,000. I'm going to DCA. Now, when it gets going up parabolic like it did last winter, I kept putting the money aside, but I didn't purchase, and I waited till, you know, it came down again. And that's just kind of the strategy that I'm taking, trying to DCA in when it starts to make sense to do so. During November and December, it didn't make sense to me to start putting money into that parabolic rise. So I just kind of held out, kept the money ready, but kind of held out and waited for a while because I thought, okay, this is either going to start going normal or it's going to fall. And then, of course, we're where it is. But I look at now as like I'm just leveraging my DCA to where it's making all of my Bitcoin cost less in the long run, because I believe in the hodl game. I believe that this is a long time hodl. So that's just my feelings. It's like kind of like we're having a sell right now.
Well, and that's definitely the way to go if you believe in something. I remember I got Facebook stock in the IPO and it went down, and I didn't know at the time. I just held mine. But the thing to do, if you actually believe in something long term, as hard as it may be, is to double down. If you put more money in, then like you say, the average price you pay gets cheaper. So if it keeps going down, you keep putting more in slowly, the average price you pay will get cheaper. So I do think dollar cost averaging is the best way to go. Also, don't have more money in than you can afford to lose. But as you say, during the parabolic point, it was really hard for people to judge that. And people who didn't have any money suddenly had money. And I didn't know. I don't really want to buy that much. So I was kind of at a standstill and didn't know what to do. And it happened really fast. And then it went back down. And now I think the other side of it's coming in where, sure, you didn't know what to do with that money, but it would have been a lot nicer to have it than not to have it. So people have got to work through that. It's pretty tough, I think.
I agree 100%. Anyways, just like your show. Hope everybody's getting a lot out of what Thomas has to say, because he does have a lot of good stuff. And I like those readings that you do, you know, while you're not aware that we're here. Wink, wink, wink. Those are cool, some cool readings you got going on.
Well, thanks so much, Russell, for giving us a call, and give us a call anytime.
Thank you.
And you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or at 518-600-1949. We're just talking Bitcoin, whatever else is in the news, whatever else in the world. If you want to share a personal story, that'd be cool too. It's always good to hear from the audience. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Jim from San Diego.
Hey, Jim. How's it going today? What's on your mind about Bitcoin?
Good. Well, I saw an article where it said Wall Street will not bail out Bitcoin. And it made me laugh. And I started thinking, if they were in Zimbabwe or Venezuela, they'd understand the value of Bitcoin. Because with fiat currency, the government controls the monetary system. They can add zeros to the money. They can print more money at will. They can make everybody a millionaire. But a loaf of bread might cost $100 grand then. So I think, people get all uptight about the price and stuff. But in the end, there's only so many Bitcoin, and it's a decentralized system. And so it's going to be, I think, of more value than any of these fiat currencies at some point.
Well, I think so too, and it's good to stick with it and to remember that there's more than Bitcoin than just the price. People do get a lot worried about it, so we have to work through that.
Well, the technology, it's so much more than money.
Absolutely. It's programmable, it's on your phone, it's limited, it's deflationary. It's a pretty amazing thing, but the media can't seem to figure it out. What about the bailout idea? Could Wall Street bail out Bitcoin? Why would they? And I was so interested when we read Paul Krugman's column a little while ago. Krugman said that inflation and money becoming worthless is not something you have to worry about. And I just thought that was such a kind of American attitude, right? Where he's kind of a first world thing where he's just like, yeah, I don't worry about inflation. And then we see these pictures from Venezuela where very clearly out of control hyperinflation is affecting people. The old pictures from the Weimar Republic, so on and so forth. I don't know, maybe we're worried too much about it, but it does seem like the markets are a little iffy. The debt keeps rising. Hyperinflation might come back to these systems and Bitcoin would be totally unaffected.
Well, and I had to laugh because, I'm looking at the Bitcoin ticker and I read the articles from time to time, and I saw that one and it's like Wall Street bailout Bitcoin. Bitcoin was born because Wall Street required a government bailout, and that devalued everybody's money.
A very questionable government bailout. A lot of different interesting bailouts. And of course, the original quote in the Bitcoin Genesis block is something like "Chancellor on the brink of bailouts for banks," something like that.
Right. And there's a contingency that allows for another one to occur, and that's the problem.
Oh yeah, it's definitely that kind of system. And
already
start printing money.
We'll do it again.
Well, once you start printing money, it's so hard to stop.
Right. But anyways, I love your show. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks so much for the call, Jim. Give us a call anytime. And you can call us now on Skype, World Crypto Network, all one word, or at 518-600-1949. We're just talking Bitcoin. There we go. Dan's got the quote. He says, January 3rd, 2009, Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks. That's right. It is funny. They're like Krugman has Voltaire says in the chat, Krugman has gone insane. And I used to read his columns during the Bush administration, and I enjoyed them because, of course, he was critical of the Bush administration and he was against the war. But economically, he's drifted quite a bit. Certainly, I think the internet is better than a fax machine. Krugman published words to the contrary. And recently, he's become a big naysayer of Bitcoin, trying to drag it down and down and down. So Audio Video Tweaker thinks that Krugman is a paid shill, bought and paid for. That is what's so interesting, because In some of his columns, at least back in the day, he seems very intelligent, very well thought out. But when it comes to his Bitcoin columns or even his fax machine internet columns, he seems very short with things, very impatient. He's not able to see a future where Bitcoin overcomes some of these problems that they think are such deal breakers. Part of the problem with the mainstream media's analysis of Bitcoin is that they just tend to focus on the now and then compare to the now to the end of the project without giving us the time to finish the work. They say Bitcoin's not a currency because it's so volatile. It's less than 6, 7 years old. It's 8 years old or something. It's very new. Comparing that to 100-year-old currency or even longer seems very unfair. I don't think that it's a fair comparison. It's an apples and oranges thing, right? They're completely different, but they're both fruits. And I don't know that they're going to change this. They're going to keep saying on the sidelines that it doesn't work and it's not going to work and it doesn't work now, so it can't work in the future. But I still think it will. We've got a question from Chris in the chat. He says, what will it take for Bitcoin to become mass adopted and used as a currency? Is a USD crash necessary? Well, I wouldn't look at the US first. Bitcoin, as much as it may have been popularized in the US and popularized maybe just in the English language and other languages as well, is truly a worldwide phenomenon. So when I look at the US system, bank accounts are insured, although it's never been tested. The stock market's pretty steady. You can buy anything you want with a credit card or cash. There seems to be no problem people are having spending money in the United States. So I don't think it's going to happen here first. I think we're going to see another country in a similar position like Venezuela, where their money is worthless and their government is sinking. But instead of printing their own currency like the petro, the next country might just shrug their shoulders and say, hey, we're going on the Bitcoin standard. We're going to completely give up control of our currency. Terrifying to Keynesians. They cannot print money if there's a financial crisis. They can't print money if there's a disaster. They can't print money. So this means that the government loses the ability and the power to devalue their money. So it's a big risk for a government. So it's going to be very hard for them to take. Giving up power is not something that governments do willingly or easily. So we're going to have to see a couple of these currency coins go up and fail. We're going to have to see some other, mimicry go on and not succeed. And then eventually it might even just be the people. It might not be the government. For example, if the people of Venezuela started trading Bitcoin, so on and so forth, that could really see some movement. But again, that's the long game. We're talking about Facebook's college by college rollout strategy here. You can't use Bitcoin yet because it's not at your school. It's going to take a long time. And then all of a sudden, it's going to go really quickly. So once again, like the MP3 or the internet or anything else, it starts out really slow. And enthusiasts like myself get involved and we think it's amazing. And I was on the internet and I was on BBSs all the time. I had MP3s. I was converting my CDs to MP3s. Got an MP3 player. Or actually, back in the day, we used to just carry our laptops around. We would carry our laptops around and play MP3s on our stereo from our laptops. It's what we had to do. We didn't have iPods or crazy iPhones. So yeah, messed up many a headphone jack on a laptop that way. They're not really meant for that service, except for those IBM ThinkBooks that are built like tanks. But yes, I think everyone will get involved in Bitcoin, but it's going to be in other countries first. Things in the US are just not that dire. We don't really need it. Big Ed says in the chat, it's a pity that governments wouldn't do this, as ultimately governments are people. And it just shows you that it's governments, that it's not governments, it's the banks that won't allow this to be the case. It is tough to say, but yeah, we'll just have to see how it goes, whether it's the banks or the governments. Both of them are made of people, like he says. And if they looked at this long term, not stopping the devaluation of currency basically stops government and money from stealing from people who are too ignorant to realize they're being stolen from, and who generally don't have any recourse or any power in general. So it's a bad thing. Most people don't know about it. They're not that concerned. Also, remember, like we talked about yesterday, most normal people are thinking about what they're going to have for dinner. That's how far they plan ahead. Whereas truly rich people, out of control riches, they're thinking generationally. One of the things Howard Cosell said in his book that I was listening to this morning, and I respect him for it, he said that he wanted more money for his new contract for Monday Night Football, not just for himself and for his wife, but for his children and his grandchildren. He wanted them not to want. And if he could use his broadcasting career and his voice and his position on Monday Night Football to help his family generations from now, Howard Cosell was going to do it. He valued his family and he valued working for them and earning the money. So that's a good use for wealth, to pass it on to your children. But at a certain point, you start building castles for your children. At a certain point, you start having so many vacation homes, you have to hire a staff to run them. At a certain point, there's such excesses in wealth. Reading that article about the Cosmopolitan yesterday, where high rollers are gambling millions of dollars, sometimes winning, sometimes losing. But in general, the key there is that it doesn't matter to them if they lose millions of dollars. Maybe we can take that. Well, I guess if you have like 20 million, who cares about a few? But if you have nothing, losing a few is pretty bad. So maybe we can't exactly line up with that. But there are characters out there with more money than you, deciding on what to spend it for, and they know what they're going to have for dinner. They're thinking about other things. We're checking out the chat and we're taking your phone calls. So you can give us a call now on Skype, World Crypto Network, all one word. You can install Skype for free. It's best to install it on your mobile phone. That way you can just use the microphone and speaker on your phone. Create an account at Microsoft. You could even use a fake email. I won't tell them. And then you can call us live for free. Or if you've got a phone and you can reach the United States, some Gmail accounts allow you to make phone calls straight from Gmail. But it's great to use a phone because it has a speaker and a microphone. You can call us now at 518-600-1949. We will try to keep the show going for a little while, but I don't really have anything else planned. So if there are no calls, we might have to move on for the day. We do have later in the day coming up the Bitcoin group at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Andy Hoffman will be joining me as we discuss the week's events in Bitcoin, the price, the Goldman Sachs, the fear, the ups and the downs, all on the Bitcoin group, our regular Friday program that we've been doing for about the last 5 years. So going to check in with the chat. Let's see what's going on. Chris agrees. He says that it seems to make sense. Yes, it's disappointing that it won't happen in the US. I certainly want it to happen here. I'm trying to tell people about it. I'm trying to spread the word with these shows and my Twitter account and all the other things that I try to do. I do think it's great. But yeah, it's just not ready for us yet. We're not in that problem. Let's Fix It says greed, money, and power. That's what governments and banks want. Zach used to sell burned CDs in high school. Yep, that was the day. Quite something. There's been so many revolutions in media just during my lifetime. To go from analog to have a cassette player, to go to CD, then to go to MP3 was an incredible transition in music and the way that we consume things. And it's funny now, there's still a lot of media around me. I'm kind of into media, but in a lot of ways, I could probably get most everything on my phone. I've got a lot of streaming services. I'm starting slowly but surely to consider collecting iTunes versions of movies so that they'll sync to all of my platforms. And if I was on a plane or in a bus or something, I could watch a movie on my phone. That sounds pretty good. So things are getting better. But what's also so interesting is that I really see these movies being traded around like baseball cards. It's so funny to me because I know how much value there is in a movie, how many people have to work on it, the actors, the actresses, the lighting, the sets, the editing, the food, the behind the scenes things, setting up the locations, all of that. But still, it ends up as this property which you can get in any secondhand store for $5 to $10. And online, they keep trading them around from service to service. This movie's on Netflix. This movie's on Hulu. I couldn't find a movie once. It was because it was on Roku. Roku had bought the contract for School of Rock, so it disappeared from everywhere else. It's very strange what's going on with these movies. I've even seen now they're packing random movies together in not Blu-rays, but on Apple. You can get like 2 movies on Apple for $10, and it's a random movie paired with another movie that never had anything to do with it. Some of them do. They had RoboCop. You could buy the old one and the new one for $10. Interesting. They had one of those silly movies like What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas and Just Married. They're kind of both Vegas relationship comedy movies, and they just paired them together. If you like one, you like the other. I don't know. It's pretty strange. Chris says in the chat, mini disc was underrated. That was a fun time. I had a mini disc player for a while, just about the time Sony was trying to link the mini disc platform up with MP3s. Unfortunately, I still had to record my mini discs at real time. It was pretty neat. I could make kind of a custom CD on a mini disc and then carry it around, and it didn't skip. That's a big deal. I used to carry around my Discman and it would skip. Later, I got nicer Discmen with memory in them. They actually put, I don't know, RAM or something like that, and they would buffer the song in the memory, and then they would play it so it wouldn't skip off the disc. This is something you young people have no idea what I'm talking about, but mini disc was very cool. And we're still taking your calls here on World Crypto Network, all one word on Skype, or at 518-600-1949. You can call in, just tell us what's going on, comment on the day's stories and shows, or you could give us a question in the chat. DSP, Chris writes, digital sound processing, I guess. I don't know, something like that. Crypto Daddy says, Thomas, you're too young to remember all that stuff. Well, I've got a trick for you. I've got a really good memory. Of course, I'm wrong here on Rubio and Cruz. Sorry about that. I do compare the two. But yes, hard to tell the difference. They're both terrible. And actually, my first music device was a Fisher-Price record player. I had many 45s, including one by the Beatles with the great song Get Back on one side. Really good stuff. Love Get Back. It's funny that the Beatles song I was really introduced first is one of their last songs and one of their last hits. So it's pretty interesting. I also had like some kind of disco children's albums. I had some Sesame Street albums, stuff like that. And of course, I had one big Elvis record. So Elvis and the Beatles from the beginning. Edmund Dorff in the chat says Thomas is 67. Oh, quite a great age to reach if I was 67. I do feel older than I am sometimes. They had an article about probiotics recently. I don't know what to say about it, but I'm on a probiotic from the doctor, and it's a really good probiotic. So if you're having any kind of stomach problems, I suggest this VSL probiotic. It's refrigerated in the pharmacy section. It's expensive, but I think it's worth it. The new article about probiotics, I think, was mainly warning against this trend that seems to be add probiotics into everything. And of course, the study showed that probiotics don't always work with the same person. You need a different probiotic for each person, which makes it much more complicated than just eating bread that has probiotic in it. So yeah, I don't trust any of those probiotics, but if you get this fancy one, it's not prescription. I mean, you could talk to your doctor, of course, but it's called VSL, and it's in the refrigerator section at the pharmacy. You have to ask them. It's behind the thing. But yeah, I would check that out. Kay in the chat says that they quit drinking liquor. That's a good idea. I also definitely stopped drinking alcohol to try to improve my stomach. I don't really felt that I drank that much. But I got no idea what's causing my problems. So I just want to empty everything out and get better. And I hope if you're not feeling well in the stomach area, don't listen to that probiotic article. Try this fancy one. You know, Zach says he recorded 100 songs in high school, but he lost all the tapes. No, awful, awful. I still have some tapes, like from my old college radio shows, so on and so forth. It was pretty amazing. I'd go down to the college radio station. We had we could broadcast about as long as not the campus, maybe a fourth of the campus. You could hear us in the student union and hardly anywhere else. Not that many people listened and no one ever called in. But it was fun doing college radio, and I do have the old tapes of that. Some of them converted to MP3, some of them damaged, but it was fun. I did convert a lot of my audio cassettes and a lot of my VHS tapes and so on and so forth into digital. If you haven't done that yet, give it a try. It's really good. There's a lot of companies that will help you do it now. It's really good. Dan says in the chat, we should have a debate between JW and Andreas. I would moderate that. I think it would be fun. It's a bit hard to get Andreas to come on to shows now. He's very busy traveling the world. And if he's turning down CNBC, I don't know that he's going to say yes to the World Crypto Network, even though I do consider him a friend. And if I had some, if I needed something, I'd ask him, but we're doing all right. So. People in the chat say the bull market will help your stomach. Pharaoh writes, intermittent fasting will heal your stomach. Water only, maybe some apple cider vinegar. I think that's a good idea. Fasting's a good idea. One of the things I read in this great book by the Navy SEAL, he said that you don't always have to eat. If you're somewhere like an office and they don't have any good food and you're hungry and they have donuts, you have to say no to donuts. Donuts are bad. So, and he just had this idea where he's like, yeah, I skip meals sometimes and I go to restaurants and I don't eat and no one says anything. I was also reading or listening to the same thing in Penn Jillette's book, Presto, where he talks about losing 100 pounds on a potato only diet. Penn refuses to eat absolutely anything according to his strange dietary guy, and they end up eating potatoes. And he talks about how, yeah, he could skip some meals and yeah, he could eat only a potato and no one would say anything. And he lost all that weight. So it really worked out for him. So changing your diet is very important. And I know a lot of people think they can't change their diet. And I certainly thought I couldn't. I would love chips and ice cream and cookies and crackers and all these kind of carbohydrates and soda and all that kind of stuff. And eventually it'll get to you. And then you'll have no choice but to change your diet. So better to change your diet before you have a problem and then just to never have this problem. And if you do have a problem, then you really got to change your diet. And I haven't had chips or any kind of spicy stuff in months now. And it's getting a little better, but I just keep trying to deal with it and to improve. And, I don't like exactly talking about personal things like this, but I do want to share them in case it helps someone and so that you can feel better too. People in the chat seem to have similar problems or have researched this before. Zach says intermittent fasting. There's fasting techniques. You can live on bananas. Try it for 3 days. Remember, you can live on basically nothing. You can live on water for like 3 days. And in a lot of ways, it's not a bad idea. I mean, you will lose weight. But you could also just eat potatoes, like Penn said. Lago says he's on the Bitcoin billionaire diet. He's skipping meals and buying Bitcoin with the spare money. That's a good idea. And definitely if you're going to get any kind of snack food or something, just don't buy it. I used to try to buy smaller things of snack food. That's a good idea. Like get one candy bar instead of a giant pack. But now I just get no candy bars. So not very fun. But you can give us a call now at 518-600-1949 or at World Crypto Network, all one word, on Skype. We might do a shorter show today because we do have a plan to come back at 1 p.m. Pacific time to do the Bitcoin group with special guest Andy Hoffman. We'll talk about all the issues of the day and it will be fun. Pharaoh says he went on a water only fast for 21 days. Oh my goodness, that's a long time. He says it was easy. I'm not so sure. He says he made a journal of everything he wanted to eat when he was done. Oh man, that's like those people that are really hungry and they read food magazines and they cut things out and they think about it. No water 3 days, no food 30 days. Yeah, that seems pretty good. Sounds rough though. But I think I didn't eat for at least 3 days when I started this, and it was a really good reset for my system. So even if you aren't having problems, it might not be a bad idea to do a little bit of fasting. Of course, I'm not a doctor. I'm not recommending anything, so talk to your doctor. But hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Crypto Daddy.
How's it going, Crypto Daddy? What's on your mind about Bitcoin today?
Uh, well, you mentioned something that hit my stomach. And that's, that the fact that you have stomach problem probably, and yeah, I fasted myself. I had a similar issue. Found out I was really allergic to bread.
Interesting. Bread, was it the wheat thing with the
I lost
celiac?
I fasted for about 10 days. And it was not easy, but I had this. All I had was water, a few other things. I called it grog. It was horrible, but I did it because I was sick and tired of feeling, sick. I was sick and tired of feeling sick. So anyway, it worked. As soon as I eat bread, my stomach acts up again. Real bad.
That's interesting. I think that's the way to go. You've got to eliminate everything. You've got to clear out the system, and sometimes just got to do it, right?
I'm not a doctor, okay, but I know what worked for me, and I cleared everything out. I cleaned everything out, and started little by little, and then I figured, I wrote down everything that I ate, and then when I started feeling bad, I said, oh, that's got to be it. So I stopped that. And I felt better. And at that point, you could go to a doctor and find out if you're allergic to bread, or you can do what I did. It's cheaper and heck, it's better, I think, because I know I could do it again. But your body can last a long time. I did a lot of research on fasting. I did it only for 10 days. There was a guy that did the same fast for about 21 days.
Whoa.
The thing is water. Your body needs water.
Water is the key, and it's important to drink more water. I know out here in the desert, I'm always kind of worried about dehydration. Penn was talking in his book about Vegas throat, and that he's pretty much always dry out here. He's been here a lot longer than I have. But it's great that you're able to fast and to figure out what was going on. I've definitely been doing some of that and working my way through it. Like they're saying in the chat, there are a lot of potential things that we're allergic to. Some of them might even be from these processed foods, or things like Roundup fertilizer, which can, pesticide, so on and so forth, that we don't even know what's going on anymore. So
it could be what you're eating exactly, or what they put in there, because it could be a good protein or whatever. But if they put junk in there, and your body's allergic to it, or has a aversion to whatever you're eating or that particular chemical, then you're going to feel it. And the only way to find out is, write down everything after a fast, everything you eat. And that's what I did. I know enough not to eat bread. So it's bad because I love bread, but.
Yeah, I used to love ice cream too. Ice cream was definitely my favorite. I miss milk. It was good stuff, but yeah, it definitely didn't agree with me. I don't know what else is going on. It's complicated. I have an irritated stomach, so I have to eat very plain food like bananas and rice and apples and toast. And I do pretty well on that, but then, you want to eat something more exciting. And the big thing that's strange is how social eating is. I'm not that great to go out to dinner with anymore, so on and so forth. I'm pretty picky, not by choice, and it's tough. And especially with the fasting, I felt that I felt hungry at meal times, and then I'd have to like ignore it and go along, and you get a little lightheaded sometimes. But it's kind of liberating to be freed from those meal times. I was very static, and I would eat, 9, 12, and 5, so on and so forth. But if you don't eat, you don't have to do anything at 9, 12, and 5. It frees up your schedule.
Yeah, exactly. And then after a while, you eat when you feel like eating, and that's what I listen to my body. If I don't feel like eating, I just say no. I know, it's 12 o'clock. It's traditionally you have to eat lunch. No, you don't. You can let it go. And your body tells you. After a while, you listen to your body. It's pretty good. Now,
Absolutely, and that's something I learned from that Navy SEAL book.
My stomach, but I know how to get around it, and so far it's so good.
Yeah, I'm glad it's turning around for you. And one of the things that the Navy SEAL said in his book is nothing will happen to you if you skip a meal. And I know we're talking very first world here and very United States and that kind of thing, but a lot of us are very fortunate and we haven't had to skip very many meals, so we're not familiar with this. And you'll be fine. You can skip a few meals.
Hey, I also wanted to mention something else. I wanted to call in yesterday. You mentioned something about some stress test. I think it was Bitcoin Cash, something like that.
Yep, they've been running a lot of transactions through their system. I haven't read why they're doing it or so on and so forth, but they kind of drove up the transactions, and then they said it was really good because the fees didn't rise. But it was strange because Roger Ver took credit.
They use that to show that there's more interest in Bitcoin Cash than there really is, right?
That's what Roger Ver tried to do, and it made no sense at all because everyone knew that it was a test, right? It was artificial. It was not real. Sure, you can say that the fees didn't rise. I'll give them that. That worked in their test. But having Roger go out there on Twitter and say that Bcash is more popular now because of this stress test, I thought it really embarrassed him.
That's my point. Because when you hear a stress test and this and that and the the banksters, as I call them, the central banks, the banks, and so forth, there's no way you can audit that. The beautiful thing about cryptos is you can audit that. You can call BS and prove it, and that's it. I think that's what happened, and whatever he was trying failed on him. That's my point.
You got to admire Roger, though. He keeps failing and having all these setbacks, but he just keeps going, right? He may be wrong, but he just keeps going in his wrong direction. There's just no stopping him. So I don't know if that just means he's a dedicated person and he's into it, or if somebody's forcing him to do it. I have no idea.
I don't know. He's the Elon Musk of cryptos.
We should get it. We should get him on Joe Rogan and hand him a joint.
And his HR department quit. I mean, I'm like, can you screw up anymore?
He is such a cowboy. I couldn't believe those tweets where he was going to take the company public. I don't own a company. I don't know that much about the rules, but it seems really obvious to me if you're a publicly traded stock, you can't go on Twitter and say that you're going to change the company to private. The shares went nuts. They froze the stock. I mean, unheard of. This Twitter thing keeps learning and breaking new rules, huh? It keeps going out there.
Yeah, he's a genius. He's a genius. Anyway, I'm going to go. I'll let you go. I'll let somebody else take your time. And hello to everyone in the chat.
Thanks so much for the call, Crypto Daddy. Give us a call anytime. Bye-bye. And yeah, I agree with him there. It was quite an amazing thing to see Elon Musk go out there and try to privatize his company. And then now to be smoking pot on Joe Rogan, just all over the place. But let's remember, Elon Musk back in the day did do some incredible things in the financial world. He started X.com. X.com later merged with PayPal to offer online trading services for money. PayPal, of course, became the payment system for eBay, allowing tons of people to sell the garbage from their garage and to get actual money. It was pretty amazing back in the day before eBay became nothing more than a Chinese resale market and a junk shop. But it's still pretty good. eBay's all right. It's just not what it used to be. But yes, X.com, PayPal had the idea of freeing the money back in the day. They, of course, looked at a similar system to Bitcoin, but it would probably be centralized. But if they let people develop value for their tokens and then trade their tokens off their platform, PayPal realized instantly that those tokens could be used for anything. And PayPal's management and investors and so on at the time weren't ready to take that risk. The founders, the people that worked there, the early employees, they all had this same dream that we did of a digital currency on the internet. Theirs would have been centralized in PayPal, but if they allowed the tokens to get out there, the whole can of worms would have opened up. They found that it was a lot easier just to be a payments company for eBay and not to allow these tokens to get out there. I remember making payments on my Palm Pilot with PayPal back in the day, paying people back for lunch and dinner and so on. But then the fees got too high. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
First name is Crypto.
All right.
I'm from Florida.
All right, Crypto. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today?
Oh, I've been thinking about a lot of things recently. but specifically, something that I think that would be kind of appropriate for the crypto audience is they've been trying to learn about like how the global financial system works,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually kind of like it's astounding. Like the level of complexity of the global financial system is just it kind of boggles the mind. And so what I realized, what you realize when you study this is that we quadrillion-dollar bubble, with all these derivatives, where you have all these large financial institutions that are they're controlling and they're manipulating. I don't want to use the word manipulating like in a bad way, even though it kind of is like that. But they're controlling these global markets.
Hello, caller. Are you still with us? All right. Well, he was talking about problems with the global markets and the complexity of the financial institutions. I certainly agree. I know when I started studying the Federal Reserve and learning about when it was created in my history classes, uh, it was shocking. It's kind of like that you think that they're bullshitting you. And you're like, no, no, no. They just print this money and then they deposit it in that bank and then they deposit it in that bank and it becomes worth more money. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
The same guy. I think my phone disconnected.
Oh, sure thing. Go ahead. I was just talking about the Federal Reserve and how complicated it all is. Go ahead. Continue.
Well, yeah, that was pretty much my main kind of point. Is that's one of the reasons why Bitcoin and silver. In my personal opinion, I prefer silver. I like gold too, but I like Bitcoin the best. But I think the reason why that they're so important is because when you take the time to really understand how the global financial system functions, you realize that built into the structure of the global financial system is a characteristic that basically amplifies and spreads social contagions because of the way that these financial tools work with all these different markets.
Well, I definitely think it drives complexity and leads to problems. And I think they create these new instruments just to confuse people, and then they shroud them in language, like the whole mortgage crisis, where they were selling bad loans inside of boxes, and you would just see the box and think it was a box full of good loans. It was actually a box full of bad loans. A lot of people think, though, that the financial institutions have been good for us and that they've helped spread trade and commerce and expand the world. And as many of these things seem like scams from the outside, they're actually good. I'm not so sure. The current system, remember, we always have to keep earning more money. Things have to go up in value. The GDP must go up because otherwise we'll never have enough money to pay off what we borrowed from the Federal Reserve. However, there's not enough money in circulation to pay off what we borrowed, so we just keep paying it down each year. Um, it's horrifying, but it's how the system works,
Yeah,
right?
it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
totally. It's like, yeah, totally. Yeah, totally agree.
That's what's so great about Bitcoin. All the rules are upfront and public, and they really can't be changed. 21 million units, the halvening structure, which decreases every 4 years. The reward decreases in half. Think about half the gold mines in the world shutting off every year until there's only 21 million pieces of gold. And that's the Bitcoin system. So it's pretty strong.
Yeah, totally. It's sound money. I mean, I'm not really like an expert, of understanding exactly how the global financial system operates currently, but there's a few takeaways that I've kind of, gotten, which is that at this point in time, it seems to be dependent upon these debt-based fiat central banks being able to print money, and then they take that money that they printed, and then they use that money to prop up these markets. And it's not really, it's not even really real money. It's not real money in the sense of there's no intrinsic value to it, and it's not limited. It's beyond like the fact that people just accept it and use it.
Well, they certainly print a lot of it digitally. So we don't even know how many dollar bills there are, and we don't know how many digital dollars there are. We only have estimates of the amount of money in circulation, and they don't even really tell us how much they're printing or when they're printing or how. But this keeps happening because, as you can see, the banks and the governments don't want to give up this power. They have this incredible power to print money and then to buy things with it. As you've seen in the last few years, several startups have claimed this power on the internet. We all thought that they would be struck down because it was clearly illegal, but instead it turns out, at least so far, there are not very many punishments for printing money, which is kind of shocking.
Yeah, totally. And going back to the silver, the sound money, and the silver and the gold and the Bitcoin thing, lately I've really started to see like an affinity between Bitcoin and gold and silver, in the sense that they're all like it's all that sound money characteristic of having a limited supply. Well, at least in the case of like gold and silver, it's very slow. How more gold and silver comes into the market, but that's exactly what is sound money. I'm bullish on Bitcoin. I probably should have said that in the beginning.
Well, I think a lot of people are bullish on Bitcoin. It's good to have you here. And yeah, I definitely agree. I think Bitcoin is closest to gold and silver. If anything, it's kind of a new version of gold and silver that's so much more convenient to use. It's not heavy. You don't have to hire anyone to guard it, and you can carry it around on your phone. It's pretty great.
Absolutely. Well, hey, let's hope to moon soon.
All right. Thanks so much for the call, Crypto. Give us a call anytime.
All right. Thanks.
All right. And you can call us now at 518-600-1949 or at Skype World Crypto Network, all one word. We're just talking about Bitcoin, talking to the chat. A lot of people in the chat really agree with what we're saying about the Federal Reserve, that they're allowed to endlessly print money, and that they say in the chat, they've got a quote from Murray Rothbard, if you have the power to print money, you will. I think that's definitely a truism, and we keep seeing it now with all the ICOs and the altcoins and whatever else. Everyone is just constantly printing. They just want more money. Audio Video Tweaker says it's like EOS, that they pump themselves. At least they're wrecking now. Tough to say. I've seen a lot of people decrying the end of alt season, and I wish I could join them, but I'm just not sure it's ever going to be over. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas. I don't know if you can hear me well.
I can hear you pretty good. Sounds like you're driving. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today?
So I'm calling from Caracas, Venezuela, the graveyard of the fiat currency system. We are in the spiral of death, the hyperinflation spiral of death.
Wow.
And right now, I'm a little frustrated with the Dash community and the Dash marketing department, because they keep, using the flag or the propaganda that how Dash is transforming Venezuelan economy, and that's wrong. That's wrong, and to a certain point, it's criminal, because they're using some marketing budget to encourage some small merchants, some, mom and dad restaurants and very small stores to accept Dash. And I have seen, because, I have friends, I walk around, I try to spread the word about Bitcoin and how we need solid money, because people here in Venezuela understand why we need solid money. They just don't know how or how it works. So they need this little help. And Dash is approaching these people saying that this is the way to go, and they're suffering, because when they receive, of course, it's volatile, but when you receive or when you sell your goods and services for Dash, and then the price crashes 20% in a day, on top of the devaluation that we have of the Bolivar, they are going to suffer that 20% extra when they're trying to recoup their raw materials. And that's the problem. I'm not saying that the Bitcoin is still on that point where you can have mass adoption and, use it as a medium of exchange, but definitely Dash is way far from that point. And I just want to get that out of my way, because it's something that we've been struggling here. And I've been trying to engage on some debates, some open debates with people from Dash, but it seems like, it's just they end every war on Twitter with a meme, but they don't want to go on the details. They just say that Dash is transforming Venezuela from inside, and that's the Messiah, but it's not true. It's false.
Well, that's very disconcerting to hear. Certainly, we've talked a lot about Dash. Because of Dash's block structure, they actually put some money aside for marketing, and they actually have marketing money. One of the problems with Bitcoin is that we just don't have any marketing money. It's people like yourself, people like me, going out there and spreading the word. We are the marketing department of Bitcoin. So I can see how it'd be hard for you to counter Dash, and how a lot of people could get confused and buy Dash instead of Bitcoin. But what's the situation like in Venezuela? From the outside, we see a lot of pictures of printed money being worthless in big piles, people turning it into purses, and that if you get paid, that you either have to spend your money immediately, turn it into Bitcoin, or turn it into goods and services. What has it been like for you on the ground in Venezuela?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We are at the point that, the banknotes, the bills are worthless. People just use them for, to build tours, to make some art, craft, and they're going to get paid for their art. But the banknotes are just worthless. And that's part of the point. The government have kicked down the cans on the road so far that they don't have any money left. They don't have any credibility left. So people realize that they have to spend the money as soon as possible. And that's something that I was, trying to portray in the future with other type of currencies. And it's the same. That's the nature of inflation, It's just that in the US or Europe, it happens in a slow motion video. But here in Venezuela, it's on a pretty accelerated path. But it's the same, if you have 2% inflation rate a year, it's just the same story. You know that as soon as you receive your paycheck, you gotta spend it. Otherwise, in a year, it's gonna be 2% at least. It's gonna worth less. So that's what's happening here. People receive their paycheck and they rather have, a can of tuna or a bag of flour, because they know that that's going to hold their value way much better than the local currency. And of course, Bitcoin is being the most used crypto, as we can see on the local Bitcoins usage. Every single week we break some all-time highs. Of course, we've seen some type of control from the government, trying to enforce their official exchange rate, because since a lot of people have left the country, now people it's realizing that they can use Bitcoin to send some money back, Every week you can send 10, 15 bucks on a week, and that could easily, put food on your table and make your salary at least last for a couple of weeks. So definitely Bitcoin is a better store of value, and I think it's the most strong store of value that we have seen in history.
I definitely agree with that, and we have the same thing here. We kick the can down the road. Maybe it's a much larger can, so it moves a lot slower, and people aren't affected as in the same way in Venezuela. But yeah, it definitely feels like if we're being slow boiled in a pot, you guys are being fast boiled down there. What's the actual Bitcoin usage like? Do you use Bitcoin on your phone? Do you use paper wallets? Do people sell it on street corners, or do you have to go to a cafe or something? Just walk us through what it's like to use Bitcoin in Venezuela.
Well, here a lot of people, it's mining. It's very profitable because the electricity is cheap. It's well more than cheap. It's free. The 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 electricity company, they stopped making the bills because it was more expensive to keep the software to make the bills and to send you the physical bill on the mail. And they just basically, you just have to pay some nominal rate, and that's it. You can mine. So I've seen here a lot of organically grow in the Bitcoin mining. A lot of people fall into the idea that if they get into dash mining, they will get rich as soon as they get the D3 mining. I remember the days when you go to when you can go to the mining profitable calculator, and it says that if you plug in a D3, you will make like, I don't know, crazy amount of money in a month. Of course, that was the days when the hashing power of Dash was very slow, and the D3 came out of the Bitmain warehouse. I keep advising people that they should stay away, but they learn the hard way. So yeah, a lot of people mining on their own, and they sell that production either to family, friends. Of course, it's a very difficult business to run here. If you have a couple of miners at your house, at least you got to make sure that the noise it's not affecting your neighbors, and they're not gonna turn you out to the authorities, because it's as simple as the police can come in and say that you were doing something wrong, and they will take your equipment. And
That's interesting. I didn't think that it would be Bitcoin mining that you would be into. I thought it would be more just trading currency, or trading, maybe bartering, trading that bag of flour for a little bit of Bitcoin. It's interesting that mining is the way that people are getting Bitcoin in Venezuela. Are people getting rich on Bitcoin, or are they just kind of getting by? What's the situation like?
what was the last question?
Do the people actually, do they gain money from having Bitcoin? Has anyone been able to maybe get too much Bitcoin to where they would maybe move somewhere else, or solve the situation for themselves somehow?
Yeah, no. What I've seen is that people that mine, they quickly realize the concept of the store of value on Bitcoin, because they don't sell everything right away. They just sell as little as possible so that they can get whatever they need to get. And a lot of people is using the Bitcoin as an earning way. So a lot of software developers, website developers, that they are now getting paid through Bitcoin. They don't sell it right away for dollars. It used to be, I know a lot of friends of mine that used to do the exchange right away, but they realized that that was a dumb idea, and they stay on Bitcoin as much as they can. They pay their bills and stuff, but they try to keep their savings in Bitcoin, because in the long run, it's the currency that would hold or increase the purchasing power.
Definitely. That's the way I think about it too. What about dollars? Are dollars incredibly prevalent? Are people using physical dollars or cash instead of bolivars? Is that happening a lot?
Well, almost everything, it's priced out in dollars. So you go to the dentist, and they're gonna say, okay, today we our price list is this one, and they're gonna give you the price list on dollars, and you can pay in dollars, you can pay in cash. Most of the providers have their U.S. accounts, so you can use Tele or something if you have your bank account also in the U.S., or you can hand them out cash. And of course, like I said, there's a lot of other places where you can go and pay with Dash or Ethereum, even Ethereum. The other day, this week, I went to a restaurant, a very fancy restaurant in the city, in Caracas, that they had a barcode for Bitcoin, Dash, and Ethereum. And I was trying to talk to the manager. He wasn't there, but I tried to make a payment with Bitcoins. They didn't know how to handle the payment, so they said that has to be done with the manager, but he's not here right now. And yeah, I'm definitely very interested in seeing how that works for them, because you cannot use this type of currencies with such a volatility and sell your stuff.
That's true. I guess it would make no sense to price something in bolivars if the price keeps moving. And especially if, during the dental procedure or during the dinner, you have to send some kid out to sell the bolivars to get dollars, or otherwise you're going to keep losing money. So I could see how that would work. Do a lot of, just a question about smartphones. Do you guys have Android or iPhones? Can you keep your Bitcoin on your phone? What do you do there?
Yeah, well, yeah, no, we are pretty advanced in terms of smartphones, at least on the big cities, yeah, people like to have iPhones and Android and the most advanced version of them. Of course, it's very expensive and it's very dangerous to have that type of phones on the street. I don't advise my friends and family members to have if they're into Bitcoin. I don't advise them to have them on their phones, because it's very easy to lose your cell phone here, and you don't want to get into the situation that you have your life savings on your cell phone, and a random guy on the street just steal your phone just for the phone, but you're gonna lose more than that. So I just advise them to have a little amount just to pay the dentist, or pay for a restaurant dinner or something like that. I used to provide that service to some of the big players in the mining forces here. I set up for them a Bitcoin nodes. I help them setting up a AirCap wallet and stuff. And that's the most, I will say, that's the most secure way to secure your Bitcoin.
So you use an older phone as an air-gapped wallet, and you can store your money on the phone and maybe leave that at home or hide it under the bed or whatever. And then that way your life savings won't be taken. Do you guys have any access to hardware wallets like a Trezor or a Ledger, or have you ever used a paper wallet?
Yeah, hardware wallets are very popular as well. But there are people that are mining with a couple of S7 at home. They don't have the money to afford a hardware wallet, or it's gonna be a big chunk of their profits. And what I advise them is just to have the regular local Bitcoins wallet, because that way they can access and manage their funds really easy. So they can go into fiat as they need it.
Well, that's great. And also those open dime wallets. I don't know if those are available, but we do have some cheaper hardware wallets now. They come on Amazon. You can buy a 3-pack for about 40, 50 bucks. Those would be an interesting idea, that they go into a USB stick, like onto a laptop. Do a lot of people have laptops and computers, or is it mainly just the smartphones? Oh, we might have lost him. Caller, are you still with us? I think he was driving, but hello? All right, we might have to let you go, caller. We're having technical difficulties, but it's really been thrilling to speak to you from Venezuela. A lot of times we talk about Venezuela and what the news tells us is going on down there. Obviously, I've never been there, and I don't live there, so I have no idea what's actually going on. but it's absolutely thrilling and exciting to hear from a caller from Venezuela. So thank you so much for giving us a call and letting us know what's going on. Oh, maybe he's calling back here. Hello, caller, you're back with us?
Okay, we just got disconnected.
Oh, great. No problem. I was just going to ask a couple more questions, and then I definitely wanted to thank you for calling us. A lot of us have been curious about what's going on inside Venezuela, and we read the news and so on and so forth, but to actually hear from someone that's there is really great. So the other question I wanted to ask is kind of a question about the future. And I want to say, does this feel like a fad or a temporary thing? Like the government's going to get it together and get the money back together and people go back to that? Or does it feel more like crypto adoption is happening? Are people switching to crypto? Do you see this continuing? Or do you think this will just be a temporary thing?
This is a very, very good question. I've been trying to, portray myself and the country into a hyper Bitcoinization situation here, and I'm still trying to understand what's going on, because things are happening so fast and so widely that you cannot keep up with the changes. But definitely here in Venezuela, the crypto adoption it's happening, and that was what motivated my call today, because I just had a little discussion online with a couple of Dash supporters that they are outside of the country, but they keep claiming how Dash is transforming Venezuela economy, and it's making more harm than good. Of course, it's bringing people to the crypto awareness situation, but it's more harm than it's causing than good.
We've definitely had similar problems here with Paycoin and BitConnect. These scammy people seem to get into Bitcoin and crypto because they want to make a lot of money. And then sadly, it costs a lot of people a lot of money. And especially it's a bad introduction to crypto. Welcome to crypto. Now you got ripped off. So that can be rough. But it's really exciting to hear from you in Venezuela. Maybe you could call back again in another week or a week or two. Just let us know how it's going. People in the chat, they also want you to hand out flyers, and they want to get your Bitcoin address. So maybe you could send it to us on Twitter at Mad Bitcoins. Maybe we could have it for the next time you called. That'd be fun too. But again, we really appreciate you calling in from Venezuela. A lot of people, we were talking in the chat about how are we going to get mass adoption to work. And here in the United States, our currency is still working pretty good. So it's not so much of a necessity. Whereas there, like this is a survival tactic, right? This is working for you.
Correct. Yeah, no, that's fine. And thank you for your work, man. You've been one of the the most solid resources of information in the crypto space. I will say in Bitcoin, because we have people that come and goes and sell their souls to the dark side. And I will say that Mad Bitcoins is a rock solid source of Bitcoin information.
Thank you so much. I'm blushing. Personal question, just how did you find the shows? Did you just start searching on YouTube or Google, or did you just want to learn more about Bitcoin? I'm just curious.
Yeah, YouTube. My main source of information is always YouTube. I try to avoid those main outlet websites like Cointelegraph or many others that just sell you the click and bait headlines. But I try to keep following the information from you and from other guys like Adam Meister. So many people that tell the real story. They keep their ideas solid and in the same path, and you can see that they don't just go behind the money. They really believe in something.
It definitely it makes a difference who you're talking to about crypto. And I've seen a lot of people with the clickbaity titles and Litecoin will make you $1 million and buy this crypto and you'll be rich and so on and so forth. And I've avoided that. It's tough. We do get kind of less viewers than those people because there is a lot of get rich quick in this industry now. But I think what it's really about is, like you said, here in Venezuela, you have a currency problem. People can't hold their value. They have to store it in goods and services, things like that. To have an alternative like Bitcoin, there was really nothing like this ever in the past. Where a country, I remember when the Cyprus situation happened in 2013. I've always studied history and economics and world relations and things. I was just blown away that the Cyprus people had an option, that they were racing to the ATMs to get their money to put it into Bitcoin, and then they could take it out of the country or they could hold it. It was a lot more like their personal money than some kind of government money or corporate money. But thanks so much for the call. What was your name again, caller? I'll label you here, but I would really love it if you would call in again in a week or a couple weeks. Just give us an update on what's going on in Venezuela.
Of course I will. Of course I will. I'll call you next Friday. Let's say Bitcoinero. Call me Bitcoinero.
Bitcoinero. That sounds great. Yeah, definitely. Aliases and everything are fine. Just great to hear from you, man. And everyone in the chat is loving it. Maybe next time, just send me your QR code on Twitter, and we'll get that up here on the screen. Maybe get you a little bit of donations. Also, you could try out a Tallycoin fundraiser at tallyco.in. You bring a Bitcoin address, and then you say you want to raise like $100, and then you tell people what it's for, and you can spread around this link. It's a great way to fundraise. It kind of has a thermometer that tells you when you reach your goal and stuff. So you might want to try that out.
Definitely give it a try.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the call, Bitcoinero, and definitely call us again next week. We'd love to hear from you. The chat is absolutely thrilled. They're just going nuts. So thank you so much.
Sure. Okay. Bye, Thomas.
Bye-bye. And that was great to hear from Venezuela. We talk a lot about Venezuela and what's going on there. It's kind of a laboratory for Bitcoin, and we're seeing how it goes. The government has launched the Petro cryptocurrency. That might be a good question next time to talk about Petro and what's going on there. And of course, they took several zeros off of the official bolivar, making it worth less, seeing how that's going. But it was interesting to hear that prices are priced in dollars there. That it's already kind of shifted, and that everyone knows the local currency is no good. They all trade it, like you said, for a bag of flour or some eggs or something you can eat, actual value that might hold something, they'll keep longer than eggs, but so on and so forth. Great to hear from him. You get a little bummed sometimes because less and less people are watching the shows. There's not that much interest in Bitcoin. The price keeps going up and down, and it's dragging us all through it. But every once in a while, you get a random phone call from Venezuela, and the guy just had the information, and I could ask him some interesting questions. And I hope we all learned a lot from that call. I think I learned a lot from that call, and it was really good. So I was really thrilled to have that call from Venezuela. We might use that to run to the end of the show right now. It's been great hanging out with you guys in the chat, seeing everybody. We're going to be back in just a few hours for the Bitcoin group with Andy Hoffman, and we're going to talk about all the issues of the week. Like he said, shout out to Adam Meister. He invited me on his show this morning. I didn't do it because I wanted to do this show, and I wasn't sure that was going to work out. We didn't get many calls yesterday. But we got some great calls today. So thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks for giving us a thumbs up and a share. And thanks to Bitcoinero in Venezuela giving us a call and telling us what it's like for him down there in Venezuela. So thanks so much for watching. We'll be back in a few hours. Until next time, bye-bye.